let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making the final installment in the Aries Crossbody with the Pisces pack add-on. We are doing the little Welt zipper pocket. We're doing the bound top, the alternate connector, the zipper top, the slip pocket, and the card slots, which are absolutely precious. I love them. I hope you will subscribe if you're not already. Go grab this pattern if you've been living under a rock, and let's get into making it. I'm gonna pull up the Pisces pack. It's been a minute since I've had a chance to really sit and go over what I'm gonna do, but I think we're gonna go ahead and get started on the welted pocket. So I'm really excited. This one is going to be a zippered top with binding, the welted pocket, the alternate connector, a zip closure, one slip pocket, and card slots. Whew. It's a lot, but I'm super, super excited. We've got our pockets, gusset, zipper pieces. This long one here is for my welted pocket, I'm fairly certain. So within that cut list, it gives me what I need. So exterior zipper pocket lining, yes, is a measurement of sorts. Nope, it is not that. It is the smaller one. Yes, not the bigger. Perfect. So we've got so many pieces here. One of my exteriors, excuse you, and then we've got our little flap piece. Zipper panels. Again, I cut these out forever ago, so I'm not even sure what I'm looking at here, but we're going to add those zippered pockets. Nope, we're going to add those, the words I cannot think of. Card slots to the lining. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to get started by looking this over. We need this is our zipper cover, our main body stabilizer, that pocket lining piece. Not a cat. Oh my gosh, you're so heavy. Sweet angel. Where did this piece go? I literally just had in my hand. And then we're going to need a piece of zipper tape. So there we go. Fuse those pieces. And then we are going to mark out that zipper panel. We're going to find our top center of our exterior piece. And while I'm here, I can go ahead and snip my centers just so it's done. And then we're going to mark out this zipper pocket. So the measurements are given. So just line that up centered throughout the entire panel. And then we're going to make it the width given. So however wide by however tall is listed in the pattern. And we are going to carefully cut that out. I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors. They're super sharp and I trust myself. I'm going to just start carefully. And you want to cut slow and as clean as possible. Using long strokes of your scissors. And then just kind of wipe away that marking pen so we don't make a mess. And then she says if you can, to kind of cut away at the fleece so that it doesn't show through. You can kind of pull this back, fluff it away, and trim away. But I didn't use like Deck of the Light or anything, and I don't plan on fully edge painting this or edge painting it at all. It's not going to fray over time, and it doesn't have like an ugly raw edge, so I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. And I'm just roughing up the edge of the fleece that I'm using, and this is the Geeky fleece. Kind of trimming that away. It's so fuzzy. Okay. Alrighty. So there we have that. And now we're going to, on the wrong side of the main panel, draw some horizontal lines above and below. And then on the side. On the wrong side of the zipper cover, draw a center line along the length and apply glue to 1/2. Okay, so I'll grab my fabric glue and just kind of swirl it in a thin layer. And you don't need to push too terribly hard, especially if you've had this stored upside down, because it'll come out on its own. And I wouldn't go too close to the top edge. You don't want it to spill out. And then we'll just fold this in half, lining up the top edge. And then I feel like you could potentially use tape for this, but the method of gluing it is going to be so that it doesn't come undone over time and kind of loosen and start to like pop out. So that is why, in my opinion, she's gluing it. And then she says she likes to store it in between two rulers with something kind of heavy on top. And I'm like, oh, I love that. There we go. Put my clips on top, let that dry. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on prepping the zipper while that's kind of drying and letting it set. So we're going to take our zipper along the longer edge of this, and we're going to base that in place. Alrighty, and then we're going to grab the other. And so you've got the right sides touching the back side of your zipper. And that's good, that's what you want. And the stitch length I'm using is like a 5, a 4.5 or a 5. I'm not that concerned with my stitch length because we're going to be sewing over this again, so it's not going to be that serious. Okay, so now we're going to press it as flat as we can. If you can iron your fabrics, you can do that. We'll get a nice crisp edge. Okay, and now on the wrong side of the main panel, apply a row of double-sided tape above the bottom drawn line. So we're still letting our little flat piece dry. We're going to apply that on the bottom line. Okay, and then we're going to place this face down, centering in between those lines and up against that bottom line that we drew. And we'll take a look. Our zipper should be pretty well centered in that. It looks beautiful. I love it. So now we're going to use an 1/8 inch top stitch underneath that line, and we're going to secure that into place, leaving really nice long tails. And I'm still using that 5 stitch length. And then to get my needle to go exactly where I want it, I'm just kind of using that reverse lever, pulling this off so I've got really nice long tails, and pull my threads to the back. And tie those. You don't want to pull it too tight. You might mess up your tension, but you do want to have a nice weight. Alrighty. And now we're going to kind of press this down. It's looking cute. Okay. Flip the exterior pocket down towards the bottom, pull it back slightly to expose the top drawn line. And we're going to add some double-sided tape there. And we're going to need to get our little flap piece out, the little zipper cover. Probably hasn't had adequate time to dry, but it's okay. We're just gonna baste. And you want to top stitch all 4 sides. You do see the sides of it, so make sure it looks good. And make sure that where you're back stitching is going to be kind of hidden. Perfect. And I love that like the top stitching kind of gives it this like pop as well. Okay. And we'll apply double-sided tape to our pocket zipper, because we're going to be sandwiching the cover over the teeth. So this little piece of double-sided tape here that we're peeling away is going to attach to our zipper cover. Make sure you've got the direction going in the right orientation, etc. Oh, you don't see the sides, I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. But you want the folded edge to be outside. Ooh, it's so cute. We're going to bring that down just a little bit because you don't want to see your zipper teeth. That to be right along that edge. And you don't want to stretch out this pocket either. And now we'll remove our tape from our zipper to attach it to the cover. And make sure that's all nice and flat and that your zipper cover is lined up nicely. So we're going to need to insert the zipper pull before we continue. Oh, I didn't take off all my tape. And so I'm just going to split that a little bit there. And attach that. I feel like Shannon is much better at applying that zipper in a small area. And you want to make sure that those ends are even. Okay, I think we got it on okay. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna get started leaving long tails. We've got our zipper pull attached. Again, nice long tails. Our zipper pull is way over here, and I have not fully attached it. Like, I haven't fully zipped it yet because I want it out of the way while I make a couple of stitches first. So we'll start that. We're going over there. Make sure your needle is down in just the right spot. And then you'll continue over. And then you want to give yourself enough room to slide your zipper pull way out of the way. So I've got about 3 inches sewn, and I can reach in, grab my zipper pull, push it all the way in, and everything is taped together, so there shouldn't be much shifting. But there might be some sticking. And we're just gonna zip that out of the way. Make sure it zips nicely. And then we'll continue back. Make sure everything is straightened. Make sure your overlay or your zipper flap, whatever you want to call it, is looking good. And then we'll continue on. Make sure your needle goes down just where you want it. And then finish off that stitch in the hole that you ended in when you started. And then we'll pull our threads to the back and knot them. And again, do your best to apply appropriate tension when you're tying those. The knots you're making are really going to help keep all of that together, since you've got that added layer of the zipper cover. Okay. I think it looks super cute. I love the way that looks. So now we need to, they're brand new. I'm not doing it. I don't have any crappy scissors. Okay, I'll use these. Sorry. They do okay though. And we'll take our lighter to the ends of the zipper so it doesn't fray over time and come undone. And then we can finish sewing over the starting just below the zipper coil, sew along each open. Okay. Yeah, kind of start where you ended the other. And you're not going to leave this open down at the bottom or anything. It's going to be fully closed. Okay. So there is our little hidden zipper. What does she even call that? Why am I stupid? Welted zipper pocket. Okay, great. It's so cute. So yeah, if you wanted to edge coat those free edges, you can. I just don't think there's going to be any issue at all with that. So the other little change that I'm doing, zip top, binding, alternate connectors, is going to be the card slots. So I'll go ahead and work on those. They're going to be added to the lining. So I will grab one of my lining pieces. Like, why is only one interfaced? Probably because I'm adding a zipper to this side, right? No, I'm adding the slip pocket to this side, so it doesn't need the added structure that the card slot side did. Okay. This is why you shouldn't wait this long between cutting, y'all. All right, so we're gonna scroll through and we are going to find the card slot edition, which is on page 35. And we are gonna add some lines to the top edges and then some double-sided tape just above those lines. And this has raw edges, so make sure you're doing your best to keep it away from the sides. If I go over, what I'll do is I'll just fold it in. And then we're going to fold this down over our tape to meet that edge and then top stitch. And if you feel like edge coating any of your raw edges, you go for it, you do it. Whatever makes your heart happy. But I thought these were an amazing way to use up little scraps of vinyl as well. That's why I have these two different colors, because I was like, wait, this is perfect. All right, so we're gonna top stitch. And she says her personal preference is to leave long tails, backstitch one, pull her threads to the wrong side when finished, and not trim and melt, which totally fair. So I'll go ahead and try doing that. And even if you're doing that, you can still kind of daisy chain it and just pull a long enough thread to kind of share between the two. And then just kind of cut it in half. And these are just extra little steps that help your bag hold up for a longer time. Extra step means extra work, but you'll have the confidence in knowing that like you went the extra mile for your customer, or, you know, for yourself. For me, I'm like, oh my God, it's taking forever, but like I know it's not. I don't get a lot of time anymore to sit here, and I probably say that a lot. So I'm just gently pulling to get that loop up, and then I'm taking my snips. And again, you want to be careful. You could end up making your thread shred if you pull too hard at any point. Okay. So I'm adding 2 knots, moving it out of the way so I know it's done. And I don't think the raw edge of any of the vinyls I'm using are unfit to be naked. So I'm not going to worry about adding any edge coat to them. So trimming, melting. And we're going to even be sewing over these again. So that'll be even more secure. Okay. So we're going to grab our lining, lower lining, or whatever piece you're adding them to. One of her testers, Elizabeth, added them under the flap of the minimalist saddlebag, and I was like, oh, well, that's really cool too. So for the lower main lining, you're going to add them a measurement down. Again, I'm not going to share that measurement. And we're going to add double-sided tape along the wrong side bottom of each of these. Oh, and you can also add some double-sided tape to your short sides if you're worried about it shifting. And we're going to start by taking our top. This will be the very first one. Placing that centered. Make sure it's centered and nice and straight, and we're going to top stitch that down. But you're not top stitching the sides. And I back stitched that quite a bit. Okay, and then we're going to press this one short sides. Line that up. Make sure it's straight. Secure the tape and top stitch. Ooh. And trim that away. And now we're going to take our last piece that's going to kind of cover everything, lining up the edges there. Oh my goodness, it's adorable. And I'm going to add a little woven label under that, just like that. Okay. And then we're going to top stitch around all of that at 1/8 of an inch. Leave long tails for that top edge. And I mean, you can backstitch, but it's not going to give as clean of a look. But I did just backstitch kind of at the top edge of each of those pockets, because if you think about it, there's going to be a lot of in and out. And then I'm just hand cranking at my corners so that I can ensure that I've got a nice consistent curve. Okay, and then I'm at the top of the pocket, I backstitched. Top of the pocket, backstitch. And then we'll pull our threads to the back. Oh my gosh, it's the most precious thing I've ever seen. It's so cute. And we're pulling those threads to the back and knotting them. And then I want to test it out because it's so stinking cute. Oh my goodness. I love it. Like, I just want to make a little wallet out of it in general. And then you can put that in the wristlet. You could add double of them. It's just a really fun, cute way to add some card slots to the bag. I don't know that I would recommend adding that and doing that swoopy pocket or anything. I think that might be too much on one side, but I did interface this side. I didn't interface this side because we're going to be adding our little slit pocket. So while I'm already in the lining, I'll go ahead and kind of start that. I've already marked out my slit pocket piece, and I'm going to grab my centers. And we'll line those up right sides together across the top edge. And I'll just clip that in place for now. Okay, we're going to sew around that opening using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I'm just grabbing, these are my zipper panels, these are my upper lining. This is my upper lining for the gusset. Again, I cut this out like literal months ago. Haven't had a single chance to work on it, so I'm just kind of making sure I have everything I need. My goodness. Okay. Going nice and slow around that curve. And then we're going to cut that open. And you can take the little monster teeth out of the curve to help it sit nicely, or you can use pinking shears. We'll press that open and top stitch. And if you used a lining color different from your or like your pocket lining is a little bit different than your main lining, then I would make sure to take extra caution when turning this so that you don't see any of that pocket lining on your main lining. The water-resistant canvas that I'm using for my lining does hold a crease pretty nicely. Just throwing that out there. And then I'm just stitching nice and slow around that curve so it's consistent. And then line up the lining. Looks good. And then we don't need to leave the bottom open or anything. So we're going to kind of start top stitching that at a bit of an angle. Yeah. And we'll do the opposite on this side. And then trim away the excess. Ow. Okay. And then I'm just gonna kind of baste it along the top edge there, just to keep it together a little bit. It doesn't really need that because of the way you've sewn at 3/8 and then 5/8, but why not? All right, so that is ready for later. Can mark the bottom center so when we add our lining gusset, it's ready to go. Yeah, it's so cute. So I'll probably end up finishing the lining and then flipping back to the exterior just because it'll be easier, but we've got our lower linings prepped and ready to go. We're gonna have to do our zipper panel and then attach that. And remember, we're finishing this with binding, so we're gonna have to cut the upper lining and our exterior pieces a little bit shorter. Oh, honestly, where did I put my welted pocket? But yay, let me get my nameplate so I don't forget to. Finishing up the lining. I think that'll be my best course of action at the moment. Because all we have left to do is finish the zipper with the overlay. Okay. So we're going to measure 1 inch on this opposite end. And then we're going to add double-sided tape. Now, because we're finishing this bag with the binding for the top, we are going to need to trim down our top interior piece and our exterior pieces, but I'm just going to wait to do that so that I have the template piece out. It's going to be a lot easier to just trace that so that the top edge stays consistent. So we're going to fold the edge of our overlay to meet that marked line. And the vinyl I'm using is not so thick that I am super worried about the bulk reduction techniques. My machine won't have any issues stitching over that, and I don't think it's going to make the final product less than. So you want to make sure that if your print is directional in any way, that you kind of keep that in mind as you're lining this up. And I am just making a little mark where my zipper is going to start and stop. And then I'm going to add some double-sided tape. Technically, you could add it the entire length of this panel where the zipper is going to go, but it's not super necessary. If you've got it taped in one spot, you'll be fine. I'm going to grab our lighter and just prevent any further fraying. And then we're going to open that up and angle our zipper. So the method I like to use is where I'll fold it, pinch it, and then I'll use my lighter to melt that open end. It's not the easiest, but you can get the hang of it. So I have not added my zipper pull yet. I don't believe Shannon does in the pattern either. It's not the most beginner friendly, but you can do hard things. It'll be okay. So we can leave that as it is, and honestly, you could take it apart if you wanted and have 2 separate pieces. I'm just like, ooh, that makes me anxious. I'm worried I'll mess it up. So we're going to take one side of the zipper and like just below that marked line, we're going to press our zipper right sides together. And then we're going to fold this over and encase the edges. And you're going to do anywhere from 1/4 to 3/8 seam allowance. It might say specifically, and it's probably 1/4. Turn my machine on. I just really like 3/8 at a zipper, give or take. Okay. Is that my bin? Where's that bin? And so you can kind of reduce the bulk on that zipper panel, but I'm not going to have any issues because my vinyl is not that thick. So then we'll top stitch this. And when I'm top stitching a zipper panel, I will start at the start of the finished edge. So don't start top stitching somewhere you're going to see it. You want to kind of hide it in that seam. Okay, and then we're going to pivot, gray spot, and then sew across the open raw edge. Hi, Ben. All right, so there is one piece finished, and then we'll work on the other. And so we're gonna line up the bottom raw edge, like the bottom finished edge. Make sure those lined up on the side here. Goodness. And then just to make sure that we have plenty of room, we can go ahead and kind of unzip that a little bit more. And then fold that over. And this is why you want this out of the way, so you can fully fold that over. Rude, sir. And you can tape that. I have done a video showing the little bulk reduction techniques. Otherwise, Shannon also has videos, of course, on how to do it perfectly. But I just feel like my machine, these materials, they're not too thick. But I also know that sometimes it's like, well, just because you can doesn't mean you should live with the bulk. Can you go to your spot, Ben? But I love the way the zipper panel feels. It's so structured. So if you would prefer and you know you have everything lined up, you can also start by sewing across the top raw edge, unfolded edge, whatever you might want to call it. Okay, if you want to cuddle, get into my lap. Okay. And at this point, she'll like completely take it apart. I'm gonna add my zipper pull. Can't do it. I am who I am. But you need to make sure that things are lined up perfectly. Oh, it looks so good. Okay. So then your zipper should line up perfectly right over the slip pocket, and I'll hide it just right. I'm just going to go ahead and snip my centers so that I've got that done. And I don't have any interior zippered pockets, so it doesn't quite matter which way my zipper goes. Ben, you need to go to your spot, okay, buddy? Go to your spot. Oh. You're okay. Lay down. I'm just gonna verify. I'm pretty sure it's 3/8. But I'm like, is it a 3/8? Yeah, it's 3/8. Should have known. Keep all that lined up, and then I'm going to snip in the seam allowance so that we can top stitch this flat. And is it underneath? It is underneath, that's right. Perky zipper panel. So we're going to press that bulk down, and then on the sides we're going to open up the seam, and that creates this nice flow for our seam allowance. And sometimes I'll start like by tacking it and then continuing on, but we should be okay. But you'll want to press that flat and then carry on. And then I can end it by tacking that open. That also kind of hides your back stitch in the seam allowance a little bit more if that is what you would want to do. So there's that, super cute. And then we'll add that to the other side. So right sides together, zipper sitting on top, lining up our center snips. And I'll baste that down. ⅜ inch seam allowance. And we're not going to add our gusset piece just yet because we need to trim it all down. So snip. Then we'll flip all that up so that we can see the inside lining pieces. We've got our side seam pressed flat and the bulk of the seam facing down. As I get closer to the side, I'm opening up that seam. Hello, Evermore. And then we can tack it open. Oh my goodness. These colors together are so cute. Okay. Centers are marked. Top is added. And there is our little perky zipper panel. We can set that aside. I'll go ahead and add the top lining to our gusset, and we are going to have to trim down the top of that later as well. So this is going to be a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Right sides together. Oh, I did wrong side. I did wrong side. Thought I could eyeball it. I was wrong. It's okay. I can take the teeniest, tiniest bit bigger of a seam allowance to kind of hide that. So I gotta check that. Okay. I'm also lowering my side panel just slightly so that the holes are not perfectly aligned. And then again, our materials are not so bulky that it's going to matter so much, but we're just going to snip into that seam allowance next to our stitches. We're going to lay this flat, but then press the bulk down towards the lining. And you can also use like double-sided tape to help you hold that in place. But it's just going to help keep the bulk consistent in your seam allowance. And you go to put it all together. And then if you need to remeasure your center, you can, because mine is off a little bit because I had to make that adjustment with the seam allowance. Yeah, that'll be okay. So there's our lining mostly complete. We're just going to need to trim those down, and then we'll be able to put right sides together for it. But right now we can move on to our exterior gusset. So I'm going to mark my centers. I'm going based off the pictures. Oh, no, I had it, then I lost it. There it is. Okay. So that's our top binding, and here is our connector. So usually with that connector, you're going to add some interfacing to help this last a little bit longer. I know I won't have an issue with this Luxe vinyl, but also I just didn't do it. But it can hurt. So I've added some 1/4 inch double-sided tape to each side of the line, and I'm going to fold to the center. You don't need to leave any kind of gap or anything like that. I'm just going to fold all the way. I am using 3/4 inch triangle rings. They're so cute and little. They do hold snap hooks though, so they're not so little you can't use them. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit more tape, but you don't need the whole thing taped because we're not sewing the whole thing down. Okay. So we're going to mark our center. And we're going to kind of start there. Ooh, I want this to go the other direction because it's a little too perfect of a match without being a good perfect. Can't have that. Okay. So then I'm going to mark where my actual center is. And we're going to mark the actual center of our connector. Just like right about there. So they are pretty well lined up. 1 and 1, 2, 3. It's like 1 3/8. It's just ever so slightly off. So you want to perfect that first. Perfect that little area, and then you can kind of flatten it down. Oh, I forgot to top stitch it twice. Oh well. Not the end of the world. I forgot to do the 3/8 inch top stitch. I'm okay. I don't think it matters. All right, so we're gonna measure what is in the pattern down. And just make a little line. That's where we're going to stop stitching. That's where we're going to square it off. And we're going to start kind of down in the middle, long threads, and just go down and around, pivoting with your needle down, across, and continue. Okay, and then don't forget you've got a line here to get to, pivot across, and continue. And then we are going to slowly get to where we started and stop. Pull your threads to the back, just like that. Alrighty, make sure you put your like threads together. I try to leave them at different lengths. Pull. And I'll tie them together. Why not? Oh, it's so cute. And then I guess if you needed this to be top stitched, because mine obviously isn't, you could like peel that up and top stitch it. Might be all right. Ugh, it's so cute. So truly, we're getting close to being able to put this all together. I have not worked on my strap, and normally I do that first, but kind of is what it is. I'm gonna mark my center on the bottom because we're going to trim the top again. And we're going to add the nameplate. Two inches up. I think will be cute in the center. I only have the fusible fleece as my interfacing, and I do kind of wish I had added some Decaville light. Maybe I'll try to do another Aries with Decaville light. I think I would like the structure of it. This is fun. I like how soft it is, but sometimes you want a little bit stronger of a bag, you know? All right, so once we get everything kind of together, that's when we'll head back to the alternate connector method. I may as well sew up my strap, trim those down because we're about to put it together. So I'm just doing a basic crossbody strap. Okay, good. I have 3/4 inch hardware and I was like, is this 4 inch or 3 inch? It's 3-inch strap, okay. So I'm adding my tape down the center. I'm just using 1/2 inch and lining this up so that I've got about 1/4 inch on either side, but you could of course do 1/4 inch on either side instead. Just twice as much time taping. And I'm going to fold this in with a teeny tiny little gap. The gap you leave in the middle is going to depend on the thickness of the vinyl you're using so that you can have an accurate width for your strap, like a correct, the appropriate width for the hardware you are using. Those are the words I was looking for. And I have grown to marking, like folding it in the center first and working my way out to either side. I think there's less stretching and twisting that way. I think there has been some debate of like you have to sew in one direction and then sew the other direction. Like, I believe this is the culprit. If you just stretch it one side, stretch it the other, you're going to have some twisting. But if you start in the center and slowly press it to either side, you don't get the twisting. Okay. And then if you want, you can fold your strap in half and clip it together. I used to even tape my strap again. You can clip it. But I've gotten to the point where I have one hand holding it down, one hand guiding it, and then I have a finger over the free edge coming up, folding it over. So I'm applying pressure and kind of guiding it closed. And the fun side is the side that's already folded. You don't have to fold it. So you can just keep your hands close to keep a consistent seam allowance. And then all four sides. And then pick which side is right and which one's wrong. This one has like no bows on it, so that'll be my wrong side. And then we'll grab our slide adjuster and wrap that around. And then I like to do either a box stitch or at least 2 back stitched rows of stitching to secure that. Okay, wrong side up, snap hook in one hand, up and over the slide adjuster to cover the connection, and then we'll flip that to, again, wrong side. Grab our other snap hook and attach that to this side. And then you can do another little box stitch or add rivets, whatever you like to do. Or both. And now I know that before I add my binding, I'm going to want to change my bobbin, like for sure. I have all of my pieces trimmed. With your gusset, make sure you're folding your connectors out of the way before you cut. I didn't do it, but man, I could have. So I'll go ahead and finish my lining first. And you can completely take that apart if you need to. It'll be all good either way. I'm going to grab a bunch of clips. That's not really a bunch, but okay. We're going to start by lining up that top gusset piece on one side. We'll match up the center at the bottom. And remember, we're not turning this bag, we're going to be finishing it with binding, so I am in no way concerned with leaving any kind of opening. In fact, it's the opposite. You want to make sure there are no openings except for the very top of the bag. Okay, and we'll clip that together. And I sometimes will add a clip at the top outside of the seam allowance to help me further hold everything together. And now we can start to work on getting our gusset to fit. It won't want to line up until you add snips in the gusset, and that is so you have this perfect fit there. Keep everything else out of the way, and we'll repeat those snips. Hello. Thank you. Go to your spot. Go to your spot. Ben, I don't know what you think you're doing, but let's not. That is not going to turn out well. That is not a good idea. Just go lay down. Okay, go lay down. Okay. So we're going to start with our 3/8 inch seam allowance. You can use a smaller stitch length if you need to. I think we'll be fine. And then we're just going to ever so slightly increase in the lining. Nice and slow around the curves and the lining. Making sure you're not sewing through anything you shouldn't be. Okay, and then we're going to come back as we get to the top to that 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trimming down inside the lining, and then we will move on to the other side. Matching up the bottom center, and then I like to do like 3 clips to hold that in place. And then we'll move to the other side, opening those seams, lining them up, clip, and I'll clip one down, and then we've got all the excess here in the corners. Just where we want it, and we'll snip. There we go. Okay, and then 3/8 to start. And then increase. and then back to that 3/8 at the top. And it's kind of like doing a drop-in bag, but without all the extra work because we're just binding the top edge. Okay. Kind of concerned with how that's sitting, but I think once it's in the bag, it will be okay. So we're going to attach the center at the bottom first, clip that in place. Oh, okay. The placement is, again, it's too close to being exact, so I'm going to adjust that and then take a look. It's better. And again, make sure that you've trimmed off, if you're doing the bound top method, make sure you've trimmed off that seam allowance because you're not sewing right sides together and turning it, so you don't need that seam allowance. All right, and then we're gonna snip into the gusset, just gently. And get that to fit. And you can staple this down if you need to. And then it's just going to be a consistent 3/8 inch. Get your clip out of the way. And you can decrease your stitch length by a little if you would like. Making sure those edges stay lined up. And to keep those curves looking as beautiful as possible, you want to try to stitch and pivot, or hand crank if you have to. Okay. And then we're going to trim that down. And then at these curves, we're going to do our best to not feel anxious. Just getting right in on those corners. And then we're going to add a second row stitching into those corners over our little monster teeth. And the reason you don't want to, the reason I'm not just trimming all the way into that corner is because you're going to weaken that seam. You've got a longer stitch length here, etc. So you want to reinforce all of that with a second row of stitches, but you don't want to keep the bulk of that seam. And like at the top there, it's not as serious. There's not a lot of pressure on that point. But that should give us really nice curves where you can't see it like kind of pulling apart and you don't see your stitch lines as much, especially if our tension is well suited. So then we'll clip the bottom center. Again, working our way out. We are getting so close to being done. I'm very excited. I'm hoping my mic doesn't die. If it does, then it will be a 4th day of recording this bag. And it is what it is. So I'm working my way around the top side, and then I'll set it flat so that my gusset is face up on that curve. And we'll do our little snips only in the gusset. You're not snipping both. You want this, what was straight, to have a curve. You don't need to snip what is already curved. It's like a garage door. You need to add these little slits to make it curve to fit into the spot it needs to go. Okay, there's that. 3/4, nope, 3/8. I was just looking at a 3 and a 4. 3/8 consistent. You don't need to increase at any point. And then keep those lined up. And slowly in those corners rotate so that you get that nice curve. There you go. So I'm trimming away everything but those curves and at the very top edge. And then take a deep breath. Meditate while you snip into the seams, holding it closer, just don't cut through your fingers. Pinking shears will not give you this same result because you cannot control the depth of pinking shears. They're just set to what they're set to. So it'll shorten and zigzag the seam, but it's not going to take out chunks and leave your seam allowance. So now your lining will remain in the orientation that it is, and your exterior you're going to flip right side out. Pressing on the bottom corners to get everything to sit nicely. So you can see with just that fleece, it's a little slouchy. But we've got our lining here, and that deck of the light at the top is going to help. So I've got my slip pocket to the back, which is not my favorite. Okay, cool. I can pivot this. For balance, I like pockets to go on opposite sides. So we can unzip that, and I'm going to press my seams open flat because this is not a bulky material. And you want to line those up. And you can tape this if you want, but you really don't need to. And then line up your centers at the top. You could even add a little bit of glue and let it sit. But we're going to baste it together, and then we'll add our top binding, and we will tape that on. Top binding, and then our alternate connector is going to go over top of that. And you do trim off some of this connector, but it's long to account for your materials. So if you're using a thicker vinyl, you would need more of that connector to be able to go over the bulk of all of that. So that's why it's designed that way. Okay, centers together. And when you trim off your excess seam allowance, you need to remark that top center. I'm just going to make sure that the lining sits nice and crisp, and it does. And then check how it looks when it's zipped. Oh, it's absolutely so cute. All right, so we'll baste across the top. And if you just want to take off that zipper, you can, just to keep it completely out of the way. And I'm going to baste at like 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. It'll be okay, just stick to the top. If you're worried about things shifting because you're going to do this in like a circle, just do a couple sides at once then. You don't have to tack it all down right now. And just make sure you go slow. Make sure nothing shifts. Keep your connectors out of the way, keep your zipper out of the way. connector. Okay, so right now it looks a little rough. This is very much a trust the process kind of moment. We're going to grab our binding, which is already marked. And then we're going to add 2 rows of tape. Either a 1/4 or 1/8 will be fine. And you're going to start, dang, well, glad both is fine because I'm going to do 1 of each. Oh, here's another. Great. Nope. All right. My hair is aggravating me. Oh, it's just so cute. So we had marked a measurement, and you want to start with that on the inside. You want there to be the excess. Yeah, because you're going to make room for your bulk, and then it should be about the same. And we're going to center this. Oh, no, I'm doing it wrong side. It'll be fine. I'm working from left to right, so I had to switch it up. So you're going to cover the seam with your connector, so you want to start at the middle there. Slowly peel away and stretch this just ever so slightly to fit right at that line. Dang it. The print lines up just ever so slightly more than I would prefer. Okay. And then we'll be able to trim off that little bit of excess in a little bit. And now we're going to peel our other tape and fold this over the top. Now I did not what did I not do? I didn't edge paint my vinyl. Okay, and then as I'm feeling and folding down, I'm kind of making sure they feel even as I'm pinching the seam together. So that way it's not uneven on one side versus the other. So that way when I go to top stitch this, it feels a little more consistent. And I'm clipping as I go. I don't want to trust that just the tape is going to stick perfectly throughout. It's so cute. Alrighty. And now this overlap here, we're just gonna trim away. I'm only cutting through the one layer. All right. And just make sure everything seems consistent and even. And we're gonna top stitch. We're gonna check that bobbin first. It would make it, but I have 2 full bobbins. I'm not about that life, man. But this is the last thing we have to sew. The rest is going to be riveting these connectors into place. So we've just about done it. Can you believe it? All right, and this is a matter of if you trust yourself, start at the side seam. I'm going to do it with my bobbin side facing up. I'll hope for the best. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to go for it. I did backstitch because, again, we are hiding that with our strap connector. And we're going to go slow. Make sure your connector is out of the way. Make sure anything you should not be sewing through is out of the way. And now we're getting back to where we started. Connector out of the way. Another little back stitch. Still gonna leave my thread tails long, just so I can tie it off again, but then we'll reshape this precious little bag. You're so cute. I can't get this one to do anything else, so that's good. We'll tie this one. Oh, I don't know why I thought I had both sides to worry about. Okay. So I'm going to peel off my extra double-sided tape if I can. Just don't, want that sticking to anything. Oh, that's funny. Alrighty. So now we've got some reading to do. So the measurement given We'll make that little mark and trim that excess off. And then we're going to make a small rivet hole in the center. I'm going to do about 3/8. Center. And then we're going to punch that hole. Now, on the wrong side, we're going to make a measurement and a mark and place some double-sided tape. Probably just do a little 1/4 inch against that line. And this is definitely where things can become scary because you're punching holes through your finished bag. So just make sure you're taking caution, taking extra time. Okay. All right, then we've got our connector here. Oh, goodness. I've got these little precious D-rings, little 3/4 inch. I think they give a nice feminine touch to the look of the bag. So I'm happy with that. Goodness. All right. We're going to fold this down onto the bag, and it's going to sit at the top edge. So we want to fold this down to meet our little 2-inch line. You've got just that little piece of tape holding it together. And this will vary on your materials because sometimes you can't punch through that much. So we've got it folded on itself. That D-ring or that triangle ring is right on top of all that, and then we can we needed to punch the hole through the assembled bag and the D-ring. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So if that's too much, what you can do is punch the hole through the alternate connector, mark that hole on your bag, and then punch that. Make sure everything else is out of the way. We're lined up, and squeeze. There we go. So now when you're folding this, getting that triangle ring exactly where you want it and applying some tension to that connector, then we can go all the way through, line up that hole, mark it, and then punch through here. And then you might need more than a 9x9 rivet, depending on your materials, but I think we're going to be okay. So I'll just need 2 caps, 2 posts. And we can put the post through the back Make sure your D-ring or triangle ring is in the spot it needs to be. And then we're going to work our way through those layers. Kind of wiggling all the excess out of the way and get your D-ring, triangle ring where it needs to go. And then we'll press that in our press. There she is. So we'll repeat that here on the other side. Laying that connector flat through that hole, finding the hole, marking it, moving the excess out of the way, making sure there's nothing we're about to cut through. Hole punch. And then we're going to wrap this around with our triangle ring where it needs to go. Wipe away any of your excess silver pen, marking pen, and then wiggle through those layers, mark on the back side of that connector. Carefully punch that hole. And now you know that you've got your hole through both sides of that alternate connector, through your lining and exterior. So we'll put the cap through the back so we can see the front. And you want to see like 1/4 of an inch of that rivet, no more, no less if you can help it, so that you know you've got good grip for that rivet to hold. And then crunch it down. Okay. Clean up my space a little bit. We're going to add our zipper pull back on. Make sure our mic doesn't die. Clean up our space a little bit. Okay. So you got the ends of your zipper here. And my trick is to hold it with 2 fingers and support it with your thumb. And then as you go to add the other side, you want to lift up with those 2 fingers. I don't know which camera to show. And watch to make sure that the bottom is lined up evenly and push it forward. And it should line up perfectly. If not, redo it and then zip it shut. Okay. And then we can add did I just throw the screw away? I bet I did. Yes, I did. It's okay. This trash was recently taken out. There's no food in it. I'm gonna go with I never had it. Never had the screw. There's no extra up here, but that's okay. So we can zip our zipper all the way, and we'll just add our little zipper end. Screw that on. If you want your zipper to be a little bit shorter, you can make that adjustment. You can also glue and add that screw for your zipper end. Add that strap, and we are done. And I love those little triangle rings. They fit those hooks just right. So this is our 3rd and final Aries Crossbody with the Pisces add-on, the Pisces pack. I definitely feel like my lining or something just wasn't quite right. It might have been the interfacing I added to one side and not the other. Go figure. So one side has more structure, of course, and the other doesn't. But once you load it up with things, it's not going to be the end of the world, but maybe that's a change that you can make when you make your bag. But thank you so much for joining me. I absolutely love this little pocket here. It's really classy. It's kind of secretive. Feels really nice on the bag and was like a fun little learning technique. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll subscribe if you're not already. I hope you'll check out the Pisces pack from Knotted Threads Co. and the Aries Crossbody. And I will see you all later. Bye.
Phew. Whew.